Hi there, welcome to our next session on our leadership training. Do listen to the content and don't forget, at the end of the session, there's questions to answer.
Welcome back to part 2 of the key values for small groups. As we've talked about some of the generic foundational values for leading small group, here's some aspirational things as we want to see small groups going deeper in discipleship and ministry in a real context for learning and growing. I think being friends or being pastored isn't the same as being discipled. Now, when Jesus sought to make disciples, he spoke to crowds, he gathered many, people were attracted to him, but when making disciples, it was a small group that he chose, a group of 12 people. And it's sometimes said there are lots of spaces in which people gather, from those intimate one-on-one spaces to the very large public spaces. But the large public spaces are the worst spaces to do discipleship. It's not that discipleship doesn't happen there, but it doesn't happen as well as when people are noticed, when they're loved, when there's the feedback loop that can happen where people are in more intimate settings and contexts. And so we hope that our small groups are places where discipleship is assumed, that the culture of the small group life is one where people are wanting to be apprentices of Jesus, want to follow Jesus, and that we understand that learning to follow Jesus is very much dependent on community. It's in community that we learn about our weaknesses and we're able to have our strengths and our gifts identified and affirmed and developed. So I hope that we have a discipleship curriculum at Woodlands, and it starts with, it includes things like baptism, it includes things like finding a mentor, it includes things like taking steps of offering yourself more fully to Jesus, whether it's your money, or sexuality, or what kind of things. So we hope that small group life has something in the culture we're alongside other people who wanted to go deep with Jesus, who want to learn about him and imitate him. We'd love to support you in disciple-making strategies in your small groups, and that's part of what Woodlands Academy is all about. And it's absolutely critical for us to obey the Great Commission that Jesus gave us, which is to make disciples of all nations, not just believers, but people who are committed to becoming like Jesus, not just in character, but also in conduct, doing the things that Jesus does, but becoming like him. And we do that together as we overlap life. We recognize our gift as a listener, or maybe our impatience and our need to grow in the fruit of the Spirit, and working on our stuff can really happen in discipleship. It may well be that even a small group is too big to face some of the really nitty-gritty discipleship questions and challenges in our life. It can be that out of a small group, breaking down into 2s or 3s, having mentoring relationships within a small group, having accountability relationships, are all part of what will really help the discipleship happen. Next value, going deeper. Application is a place that small groups can really help the momentum and direction of church life. Sunday by Sunday we preach, and the retention of what people preach by members of the congregation is probably fairly small. I don't know if you can remember what you heard about last Sunday, but one of the things that we want to do around the church family is to see how our midweek church partners with our Sunday gatherings, and we can start to apply and go deeper with the things that are being taught, shared, particularly where we're wanting as church leaders to give a real sense of momentum and direction around where we're going with our strategy and our call to see the whole of Bristol impacted with the love and power of God, how we see that transformation, how we put into practice our goals to grow both in numbers and in depth. And so the going deeper stuff, reflecting on preaching, using the study notes that we provide, can be a really helpful tool for us. Multiplication. In life, things that are mature multiply. We have the capacity for reproduction when we become adult. Multiplying a small group is a real sign of the maturity of the group, that is able to reproduce itself because it's growing leaders, it's growing people with a heart for Jesus, it's growing people with a heart for people. Multiplication was one of the things that the strategic review for the Woodlands Church family identified as a real challenge for our small groups. If people who are not yet followers of Jesus are going to find a place in church and in community, they need to find a place in small groups. If we're going to be a growing church, we need to be made up of growing small groups. And we recognise, though, what a challenge multiplication is. It's a challenge because we make friends and we don't want to lose our friendships. It's a challenge because the responsibility of leadership is one that can weigh quite heavy on people, and people are not necessarily as ready to step up to leadership as they are to step up and to belong. And so one of the things that we really appreciate is people like yourselves who are listening to me right now and saying, well, I am a small group leader, or I'm thinking of becoming a small group leader. I'd like to learn more about the challenge of being a small group leader. We love leaders to be people who reproduce leaders. We love it if from the word go, a small group thinks, we've got a challenge. We'd love to make space for those people who don't yet believe. And we've got to have such a heart for those people. That's such a heart for inclusion that we're willing to face the challenges of growth and multiplication. So here's some strategies that we have for multiplication in small group leads. It's really great to have assistant leaders or home group subs, people who are sharing in the role of leadership without carrying the full responsibility of it, so they're being prepared to lead. It's really helpful if we can find within a small group a core of people who can be the nucleus of a new group. Jesus had a core in his group of 12 of 4 people who were very like one another, 2 sets of brothers, Peter and Andrew, James and John. And it's sometimes said that a third of your church is your core. And if you've got a core, you can hang on that core individuals who may be very different to one another, just as Jesus' discipleship group could incorporate, on the one hand, a revolutionary, and on the other, a kind of someone who's a collaborator with the Romans in the form of Simon the Zealot and Matthew the tax collector. So let's see within our small groups if we can identify the next new core and the next new leaders. Maybe the final thing for me just to reference as a value for small group life is the value of a place where we can learn and practice spiritual gifts. The supernatural gifts of the Spirit are listed in 1 Corinthians 12, and they include things like miracles, healing, words of knowledge, prophecy. Things that seem really out there and yet are part of the normal Christian life, it seems, in the early church. Part of the naturally supernatural life that we aspire to within the Woodlands Church family. How do we learn and grow in the use of spiritual gifts? Well, small groups should be an ideal context for that to happen. We love it if small group leaders can feel such a confidence in learning together about how to listen to God and to appropriately share what He's giving them, that there are great places for prophecy and words of knowledge and revelation. We hope and pray that week by week, small groups can pray for one another and minister to one another. So if there's sickness, if there's depression, if there are challenges on people's lives, that we can see spiritual breakthrough happening. We hope and pray that small groups can be a place where gifts of faith can be so real that people are taking new steps in discovering how it is to keep in step with the Holy Spirit and walk with Him. And all of those things lead to the fact that small group life, if it's really going to be church, it's going to have a relationship to mission too. When we talk about church, we often use the symbol of a triangle with 3 points to talk about the up, in and out of what it means to be church. The Godward element of the up, the pastoral care and community element of the in, but also the missional element of the out. Small groups are uniquely designed to reach the circle of people that the small group know. And we hope that one of the things that small groups can do is pray for, plan together how we can be a small group you can bring your friends to, a small group that can serve our city in practical ways, a small group that has an out as well as an in. And I think that's part of the fun and adventure of doing the Christian life and following Jesus together.
There you are, there's the content from this session. Do look at the questions now and fill them in the booklet. Thanks so much.